Now that we've completed our little brand warm-up, we're ready to start answering one very important question. What does your website need to actually do? Sometimes this can be surprisingly difficult to answer. A lot of people get so caught up in having a good-looking design that they tend to lose sight of what their goals actually are. And okay, as a designer, I admit that I sometimes am definitely guilty. That's why for me, it always helps to back up and lay out a website's goals in a clear, defined way. What would your ideal website do for you? What would it provide your existing and potential customers? There's no definitive answer, but there are a few blanket things that you need to keep in mind. First and foremost, your website needs to provide information. This is the most obvious piece of the puzzle and ultimately the most important. Your website is useless unless it gives customers the information that they really need. So, more specifically, what information are we talking about here? Well, to me, the bare bones basics are your hours, your location, and your menu. These are all absolutely necessary. I'm always surprised at the number of restaurant websites that miss one or all of these things. If you're not going to deliver this super basic information, what's even the point? I'm also fully behind the idea that all restaurant websites should allow people to make reservations online. It's just such a huge convenience, and it's so easy to do these days. Don't worry if that sounds intimidating. I'll be walking you through how to do this later on in the series. Beyond the basics, there are plenty of other things that you might want to include. For example, I personally have a little bit of parking anxiety, so I always appreciate it when a restaurant says whether they have on-street or lot parking on their website. Or maybe you want to emphasize your vegetarian or gluten-free options without having people comb through every item of your menu. Think of anything that would be genuinely useful to your customers. The next layer of a great restaurant website is brand reinforcement. In our last video, we established your brand promise. Plus, you already probably have a pretty good inherent grasp of your restaurant's identity. Think of, for example, your atmosphere, the attitude that you want to project. The design of your website has the ability to say so much about your restaurant before the viewer reads a word of text. What is it that you're putting at the forefront? What is your tone? What kinds of colors are you using? All of these things will say something significant, and a really great, successful restaurant website will be using all of them to push their brand. Okay, so this probably goes without saying, but really, the end game of all of these things is to sell yourself. Never forget that the end goal of your website is to get people in the door. Don't get me wrong, I don't mean this in a money-grubbing, greedy sort of way, and I'm definitely not advocating that you make your website a cesspool of pop-up ads. But what I am saying is that every decision that you make should have a reason. I have met plenty of small business owners who just want to cover their website with things that they personally think are cool. And it's great to have that kind of enthusiasm. But at the same time, most of their additions were totally irrelevant. In the back of your mind, always remember what the goal actually is. Make your decisions based on the end game. Now that you have an idea of what major needs your website needs to fulfill, we're going to take a look at a few other restaurant websites to see what these ideas look like out in the wild. Head over to the next video to get started.